All right, guys, welcome back to the Stogie Lads podcast. After a few months away, both Ruben and I have had some moves and stuff, so we've taken a little pause, but we're back with two guests that I couldn't imagine a better return, actually, because we have both Fabian Ziegler and Terrence Riley here from Aganorsa Leaf. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having us.
Awesome.
So this is an extra special one for me because I made a video from Dortmund where I actually met you guys, and I talked a little about the project that I'm doing with a big group of friends, the Nordic Leaf launch, and we are actually very excited to say that we are moving forward with Aganorsa and bringing them to Sweden, and this is something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's absolutely awesome to be working with you guys in the future. So yeah, we can't wait to let the Swedes sample the awesome stuff that you guys have coming out.
We can't wait either. And as a great wrestler once said, finally Aganorsa has come to Sweden.
Which famous wrestler is that?
The Rock. From Miami.
We talked about Sweden, huh? That's pretty cool.
You did study.
Yes, yeah. And a close personal friend of mine, I hope, one day.
One day.
Yeah. No, we're very, very excited. I mean, I spent a little bit of time in Sweden many years ago with another cigar brand, and did a few events there, and saw that there was, even though it's very, very cold, and by the way, it's very, very cold today in Miami. I mean, we're like at 17, 18 degrees. Terrence had to put his jacket on.
But we're suffering too.
There's many people who smoke cigars in Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a good, at least a very passionate per capita cigar smoking community. So I'm proud of that for sure. So we're going to get into all of that for sure. But I don't know, Ruben, if you want to kick it off with some introductory questions just to introduce.
Yeah, so you guys said you were in Miami now, but is that where you spend most of your time, or are you in Nicaragua as well for the most part?
We travel quite a bit. We both live here, but between the two of us, going to Nicaragua, throughout the United States, going to Europe for Intertabac, God knows wherever else. So technically we live here, but we're not here as often as we are, I would say.
Our bills get sent to Miami, but we could say we're staying at the local Marriott.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I guess, touch on the brand itself, because I think it's a company that a lot of people have had more to do with than they think because of your cultivation throughout the years. But a lot of people don't know. I mean, at least throughout the years, there have been claims, I read in Cigar Aficionado, for example, that you are the biggest cultivator in Nicaragua. That's probably a fact that a lot of people maybe wouldn't guess. And you guys have now expanded a lot more into cigars. But if you just want to introduce Aganorsa as you know, where the company's come from and what the sort of the elevator pitch for Aganorsa is, what would that be like?
So Aganorsa is kind of an interesting synthesis of kind of a unique story with a similar story you hear from other companies. So on the one side, Eduardo Fernandez, the owner, he's a Cuban guy, which is fairly common. And then, he left Cuba with his family after they generously donated all their stuff to Castro and the government there in the early 60s, which was very nice of them. And then he grew up in South Florida. Again, a very similar story in that sense, but that's where the similarity really ends. And Eduardo his family was not in tobacco. And he grew up, he went to Wharton School of Business. He became very successful in banking in Miami. And then in the 80s, he and his brother saw how Little Caesars and Domino's and delivery pizza was becoming a big thing. And he and his brother went to Spain and introduced something called telepizza, which I don't know if they have in Sweden, but they're all over the place in Spain to this day, and a lot of other places in Europe. And they created that business. It was a traditional market, and they hadn't really seen anything like that before, and people didn't think you could have that type of business in Spain. or in Europe in general, and it was very successful. And after about 8 years of doing this, they sold the business. They took it public, and at that point, he kind of could do whatever he wanted to do. And he was always interested in farming, and his wife is Nicaraguan. And so he went to Nicaragua. It was just after kind of the end of the embargo against Nicaragua and the Sandinistas and Contra era and everything like that. And he was able to go in there and start investing in land. He's one of the largest landowners in Nicaragua. And it was, cattle, pigs, rice, all sorts of different agricultural things. And because Nicaragua was able to grow first-class tobacco, he got into that. Because he didn't have the experience in tobacco himself, he went to Cuba and he brought out of retirement guys that had worked for Cuba Tobacco. These weren't just like, let's get some Cubans and call it, say we have Cubans here. These were guys that worked for Cuba Tobacco, in some cases for half a century, in some of the highest levels. Arsenio Ramos, who passed away a couple of years ago, but was with us for nearly 20 years. Chandito Gomez, Jacinto Iglesias, and many others. And they came and they basically gave them the resources that Cuba often just doesn't have enough of anymore, even back then, but especially now. And took that knowledge that they have and started growing leaf. And so the business started off just growing tobacco. In fact, they started growing without even having buyers. Generally speaking, tobacco farmers, when they grow something, there's somebody that's taking it because it's a huge investment. You got to plant, you got to harvest it, you got to cure it, you got to get into fermentation. So if nobody's there to buy it, you've invested a lot of time and money, and then it's nice to know that there's somebody at the end of the tunnel that's going to buy it from you. And he didn't do that. He just started growing it because he felt if you have a good product, people will beat a path to your door. And that's actually what happened. And I think the first major buyer from us was Oliva. And so we started growing and selling tobacco, which is still our biggest part of the business. We sell to Fuente, JC Newman. We sell to Padron over the years, Espinosa Cigars, Altadis, which does the non-Cuban versions of Romeo and Juliet and Monte Cristo. And many other companies. Drew Estate, where Fabian spent a good portion of his industry time, and basically from there got into distribution and manufacturing. So from seed to ash, we control the entire product, and what makes us special is our leaf. That's what makes us different. Every company tries to stand out in a certain way. Some are lifestyle companies. You think of a certain lifestyle involved. Others are cult of personality driven. You think of the owner himself. We're product based. Our leaf is our strength, as we say.
Like your slogan.
And that's why people come to us and either buy tobacco from us, make cigars with us. Companies like Illusion, Foundation, Warped, Viaje, or buy Aganorsa cigars themselves. It's because they love that signature flavor that our tobacco has, that we were able to cultivate between the seeds we grow, the farms we grow it on, and then the fact we just control the whole process, seed to ash.
Yeah, that's a damn good pitch. It was funny because I actually came from Barcelona yesterday, and I did see a lot of Telepizza there. So it's just nuts to think that has a connection to the cigar industry in that sense. So Ruben, you wanted to ask more? Sorry.
But Ruben, hold on. I want to let Terrence tell everyone what the name actually means, because in the U.S. and I'm sure all over the world, they look at Aganorsa and they don't really know how to say it. And there's a meaning behind it. So Terrence, if you could please tell us. He's the one who speaks Spanish out of the two of us.
Wow. Okay. Enough to get around the bus stop.
So tell us what Aganorsa means and is.
So Cubans, for whatever reason, love acronyms. So you always kind of, all the factories in the industry or operations have kind of an acronym for a name. And so ours is Aganorsa, and Aganorsa stands for Agrícola Ganadera Norteña S.A., which basically means like our agricultural and farming company. Nicaraguan. It's a Nicaraguan farming and agricultural company. The SA, you always hear that, like TABSA, Tabacusa. The SA is like incorporated in Spanish,
Okay.
and so it basically just means it's a business. And so if you think Aganorsa is hard to say, then you know, try the actual full name, and it seems not so hard.
Yeah. Even Eduardo Fernandez has quite a long name as his full name.
Yeah.
We'll
a
call
lot
him
of people
Eduardo
like they like a lot of names. You got 2 last names and 2 first names.
Exactly.
They add up.
But you were talking about Eduardo Fernandez's well, short life story, and I mean, we read up on that, and it seemed extremely fascinating to be able to, you know, switch from the kind of career he had, also from the education he had, to something that's so hands-on, and yeah, just doing what you might love, really. And through the years, I imagine you've spent, especially Terrence, you spent a lot of time with him. Are there any like special moments or stories from interacting with him that like stand out?
Yeah, quite a few. I mean, I've been with him actually, wow, December 1st, it was 6 years. That's crazy. Yeah.
Look, I got you a fruitcake to celebrate the 6-year anniversary.
Thank you. Everybody loves fruitcake.
You're prepared like crazy.
I'll eat this, later. No, just he's a very open guy. He's very free on how he operates and does things in this industry. It's very secretive in a lot of ways. Like, people don't want anyone knowing anything about what they do. And when I joined the company, he was very much kind of like, here, this is how we do it, and this is why we do it. And I even asked, I said, well, how do you do things different than other people? And he's like, well, I don't really know how anyone else does it. I just really focus on how we do it and do the best we can. And I thought that was a good answer. And Fabian, I mean, can even speak better to this because he just joined up, just over 6 months ago, and he's got some good stories as well.
Here's the crazy thing, right? So I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years. And I was with Drew Estate for 19 years and helped them climb the ladder to, bring them to Acid being the #1 cigar brand, and Drew Estate being the #1 cigar company. And things were good. And then I joined Aganorsa, and Eduardo calls me and he goes, I know we're hiring you July 1st, but the last week of June, can you come down to Nicaragua? I want to show you the factory and show you how it's done. I don't know about you, but if you have any plans and a millionaire, billionaire calls you, goes, hey, I want to spend 4 days with you, you have no plans. And the answer is yes. Okay. So I went there, and when Eduardo goes, oh, I'll pick you up at the airport, you kind of have this like thought in your head, okay, all right, perfect, yeah, a billionaire is going to pick me up at the airport, a nice car, the chauffeur and whatnot. And you fly into Managua, and then it's a 3-hour drive up to Esteli. Okay. All right. So literally I land and I'm at the airport, and I see Eduardo holding a little sign with my name on there. And I'm like, Eduardo, I was like, Fabian. I'm like, yeah, I grabbed the sign, like the little sign. I'm like, what are you doing here? It's like, I told you I'd pick you up. I'm like, yeah, but you telling me you're going to pick me up, I didn't really, resonate. But yes, you picked me up. And he literally drove me to Esteli. That's how crazy it is. I mean, so humble, probably the most humble person I've ever met. Now, here's a crazy little fun fact, because during those 4 days, I learned more about tobacco than I did in my prior 19 years at Drew. That doesn't mean that I learned a lot of things at Drew Estate, because before I got in the cigar industry, I was undercover security at Disneyland. I didn't know anything about cigars. The only thing I knew was you cut one end and you light the other. And if you were to give me a pre-cut cigar, I had a 50-50 chance of lighting the wrong end, right? Okay. So, but one of the most interesting fact, or one of the interesting things that I learned at Aganorsa is this. And first, I have not been at all the Dominican, Nicaraguan, and Honduran factories. But in my 20 years, I've been to 9 of them. Okay. So that's a nice amount and whatnot. So every manufacturer that has tobacco in Nicaragua, Honduras, and Dominican, they get these tobacco leaves, and they'll all take you. I don't know if you guys have been to a factory or whatnot, but they all take you in front of these big polones, you know, and they talk about polones and look at these big piles of, it's bunches of leaves, and we rotate and we rotate and whatnot. And if you're lucky enough to be in one of those warehouses when they're rotating, you'll see that they take the bunch of leaves, and then they'll spray them down with water, and then they put them to the next one, and they're rotating, so the bottom becomes on the top and the top becomes on the bottom. And then they tell you, oh yes, the fermentation, the process goes extreme heat in the polone. We have to keep an eye out on the temperature. And 9 to 12 months later, boom, everything, the tobacco is ready. Look at these beautiful dark leaves, beautiful leaves. Okay, all right. Then I'm with Eduardo, and we're in his factory. And whenever you're walking through these, one of where, I mean, I walk through 5 warehouses, but you're walking through one, it's like that warehouse never ends. When you're around and you look at these polones and you're like, oh, okay, that's a lot of tobacco. And then you look out and there's a room behind that. And then there's a room behind that. And then there's a room behind that. And then behind that, there's like a dark space, which is another room that, you know, doesn't have light. But so it's never ending. So
I can imagine.
We're going and we're seeing that they're transferring the polones. And as they're transferring the bunches of tobacco, I'm like, Eduardo, how come they're not wetting the tobacco? And he goes, I always remember, he goes, Fabian, we do it the way the Cubans have been doing it for 400 years. I'm like, okay, so what is that? He's like, our secret ingredient is time. It's not water. And if you really think about it, you know, it didn't really sink in until he tells me this. He goes, hey, Fabian, or in this case, hey, Carl, hey, Ruben, you guys take a shower every day, hopefully, but you take a shower every day. What happens when you take a shower? You're washing off the oils, you're washing off the smells off your skin. Anytime you put water on the tobacco leaf, you have a chance of the oils to get washed away. And on top of that, the water increases the temperature in the center of the polone, which then also has another chance of burning off the oils on the leaves. Ultimately, when we're sitting around and smoking cigars and we're tasting the oils that are on the leaves, right? Yeah. So every manufacturer is out there wetting their leaves. We are not. So the only time we add water to our leaves is when we're ready to use the leaf to roll the cigar. Because try to roll a cigar with a dry leaf, you might as well roll a cigarette with all the little pieces that happens when the leaf explodes, right? Yeah. Now, I'm not here to tell you that Aganorsa way is the best way. I'm just here to tell you that the Aganorsa way is the Aganorsa way. And as you have a chance and you're looking to try different cigars and you're realizing, I'm getting a lot more flavor from this leaf. I'm getting a lot more flavor from the cigar. The reason behind it is we never really washed away or got the oils off the leaves. And at the end of the day, that's the most important. Now, there is a little caveat that I like to say is because the heat in that polone isn't as high, we, in a sense, don't necessarily cook our leaves. So you take our Maduros sometimes are at a lighter shade than other companies' Maduros because we don't have that extreme heat to force the leaf to get darker. So our Maduros tend to be on the lighter end. That doesn't mean that they're going to be lighter or they're going to be stronger or whatever. It's just, you know, we all have different colored skins and we all, you know, some turn red under the sun, some turn brown, you know, whatever. That's just the way it is. That's the Aganorsa way. So, you know, that's what I like to say.
That fermentation where you don't get the high heat, it's kind of like a rotisserie compared to a flash fry. Like if you go up really high with the temperature, it's more of a flash fry. If you keep it lower and slower, it's more like a rotisserie.
It's a good analogy.
Wow, that's a really wow. That was an awesome detailed story. This is the kind of like nitty gritty nerdy stuff that we love.
Don't tell anyone, all right? It's a secret.
No, I'm just gonna beep that whole. That's gonna be like 3 minutes of censorship.
Yeah, Fabian's just really pissed off during this podcast.
Exactly. No, but yeah, that was great to see. So, I mean, I read in for example, the Cigar Aficionado profile on Aganorsa, that was about 10 years ago. I suggest anyone to go read that because it talked about the process, how that was. I mean, they mentioned that the processing of the tobacco was excellent, but they didn't really bring up details like this. So that was cool. And also talked about Arsenio and Jacinto, like you said, some legends of the industry. But to go back and turn the sights towards the earlier stuff, because I mean the terroir I'm quite fascinated by. If you just wanted to like describe the places where you grow tobacco and why that is so conducive to help you get like these criollos and these corojo tobaccos that are so good. If you want to talk about that in the Aganorsa way as well.
So we grow Jalapa, Condega, and Esteli, which are the three classic areas of growing. And we have, quite frankly, some of the best farms in those areas. Like, for instance, Jalapa, we have farms that used to be owned by the dictator Somoza, and so you know that he was, taking the second pickings. He was taking the best for himself. There's a farm called La Mia, which means mine. Dictators, they're Greek, like, things to be there. So, but these are places that have grown tobacco for a long time, are known for producing consistent quality leaf, and we have a total of 14 farms, and many of them are on this type of land, and they're all in these areas. But Jalapa is a more reddish sandy soil.
Okay.
So it's the conditions in Jalapa are more similar to Pinar del Rio. In fact, the first time Eduardo took all those Cuban agronomists up there, they were kind of like, oh man, this looks like Pinar del Rio. And so temperature-wise, climate, the soil's a red sandy soil. Esteli, which is more kind of what you think of quintessentially Nicaraguan tobacco, it's got that volcanic soil. It's very
powerful,
heavy, dark, rich soil. In fact, if it rains too heavily before they till, they have to wait for it to dry because it'll break the plows. It can't go through if it's too wet. So, and then Condega is similar to Esteli because that area is closer. People grow other places. The problem with growing tobacco, there's a lot of things that go on in order to be able to produce great leaf, and not only the soil, not only a lot the climate conditions, but also things like wind. Like, you can grow in some areas though the weather's good, but for instance, like the wind will tear the leaves, and you can't really grow anything because it's tearing the crop apart. Years ago, they tried to grow in an area of Leon, which is the soil is incredible there, but it's too kind of dusty. And what happens is the sand gets onto the leaves, and then you get sand leaves, which is not what you want to taste when you're smoking a cigar. So there's a whole ton of factors that go into that, and we're fortunate to have farms that are known for consistently producing leaf over and over again, and that's really important because there's even a farm on the Pan American Highway which they tried to grow their tobacco a few years ago. I mean, I think it's like cost $1 million for the farm, and they can't. I mean, I don't know what you're growing on there, but they're not growing tobacco. They just can't do it there. So you really need to have great land and a lot of other factors to be able to be successful growing tobacco in Nicaragua, and we are fortunate to have the farms that produce some of the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the cool things is, and I'm not an explorer, but I play one in the cigar industry. If you look at a map, the Pinar del Rio is pretty much on the same latitude as Jalapa. So it has the closest of the closest amount of sun, amount of above sea level and whatnot, and stories, as they say, and I mean, I don't know how true the stories are, because we all catch fish this big, not this big, but the Cubans, when they came and they started growing tobacco in that region, they supposedly brought soil from Cuba there. Okay. Now, there's been a few rainstorms since the 50s and 60s, and there's been volcanoes and all that stuff, so I'm sure that Cuban soil's gone by now, but it's nice to say, hey, there's Cuban soil all over the place.
I'm gonna bleep the truth part of that where you say it might be gone, because it's to keep the better story.
Man, that guy is pissed off all the time.
Exactly.
It's Mr. Bleep.
Mr. Bleep. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about well, the continuing on Corojo and Criollo. You are I think I overheard that you're the only ones to grow Corojo 99.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just ask how long the process of like creating a new hybrid or variants, such as the Corojo 2012 when that came out. How does that long does that process take? And also, what end do you start the process of bringing out a new hybrid? Is it like looking to complement your existing variants, or is it going for something new?
So it's a great question. So with 99, we're the only major growers of it because it doesn't have as good a yield as other tobaccos, and we grow for flavor and aroma. And you'd say, well, what else would you grow for? But it's like the tomatoes at the grocery store weren't grown because they were the most flavorful. That's part of it, obviously. But there's factors like, okay, are these going to bruise too easily or ripen too fast so they can ship them from Miami to Ohio and make more money? And you know, it's a business, and so a lot of farmers will look at the seed varietals they can grow and say, well, I can grow this varietal and it'll generate X amount of dollars because the tobacco has a higher yield and isn't susceptible to disease or ferments fast or whatever the factors are. Or I can grow this other one, which I like the flavor of more, but you know, I'm just not going to make as much money. And so that turns off, you know, a farmer. But we're because we love the flavor and the aroma so much of the 99. That's why we grow it, and we grow on such a large scale that we can do it profitably, even though we could grow other things more profitably. In terms of the, you know, why you introduce or how that process works is basically the seeds we use all come out of Cuba. You know, so the original Cuban Corojo in the 70s was basically decimated by blue mold. It was ruined, and so the Cubans started to have grow variants that are you know, disease resistance, but they grow for other factors as well, yield and flavor and everything else. And there's Habano 92, Habano 2000, Corojo 99, Curry 98. And so when these seeds become available, we start seeing if they can be utilized. And that's a long process. So for instance, you mentioned Corojo 2012, which we've started to utilize. So you have to grow a test crop of that. One, to see if it'll even grow there. Just because it grows in Cuba doesn't mean it grows in Nicaragua or Honduras or any other country. So you have to grow a test crop, and you grow the test crop. You've got about 75 days to harvest. Then you've got about 45 days or so for curing. Then you have 6 months to you know, a year plus for fermentation. And then you have to age it a little bit. So you're talking a few years here before one, can you grow it, and then two, how does it mix with the other tobaccos? So then you start blending it in with the other tobaccos that you do currently have. And you say, well, you know, sometimes you say, well, this isn't going to work, and oh well, that was a waste of time. And other times you say, okay, well, this is going to be a nice complement to our signature flavor profile, and is going to add another dimension to it. Now you got to do the whole process over again on a much larger scale. So now you're talking years before you really know if a varietal is viable for you, you know, and so that's like you say, 2012. We only started using 2012 commercially about 2 years ago. That's because it took quite a long time to figure out that we could use it.
Wow. Exactly. Yeah. So we're talking a long time.
Well, one of the cool things with Aganorsa is, and once Aganorsa cigars are launched in Sweden, we're going to set up little fuma tastings, right? And our friends Charles and Manny are going to be doing it, and then hopefully we're going to work out a system where they're going to over Zoom. One of us will be on the fuma tasting and do fuma tasting with you guys when you're doing it. And what a fuma tasting is literally, we take one leaf. Okay, so you have one leaf of the Criollo 98 or one leaf of the Corojo 99, and you smoke and you light that up. It's almost like a little cigarette, and you smoke that. And then you understand how each leaf hits your mouth and your palate different ways. And then after the whole process, you will truly understand, because I'm sure we've all heard this phrase, oh, this is a well-balanced cigar. Right. Well, what is a well-balanced cigar? How do you make a well-balanced cigar, and what makes it, right? After doing the fuma tasting, you will realize, or you will understand truly what a well-balanced cigar is. And the reason why we do this at our events is when an end consumer wants, you know, of course, hopefully they want to purchase cigars, but it's always a little tough when it's cigars you've never heard of, and you know, you can hear the sales pitch. But if you do the fuma tasting, And then after you do the fume tasting, and the question is, did you like the 98 better? Did you like the 99 better? Did you like the 98 and 99 when you smoke them together? Whatever they say, then we have lines and specific cigars we can point them towards. And by what the end smoker told us, they have a better chance of enjoying or liking their purchase. So be on the lookout. You know, I mean, once Aganorsa is in Sweden, the fume tastings all over the place. You know, I mean, well, Terrence's face is going to be on the most wanted. You know, have you seen this guy?
Going to be on the bus benches and everything. Yeah.
No, that is
there
such
you
a
go.
damn cool.
Seen those.
God help us.
Seen those videos of, you know, when you try one, try the other, and then you both put them in, like in the mouth together, and just I really want to try that actually. So we'll have to make that work.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
That was from was it Jacinto or was it Arsenio? I read in the Cigar Aficionado thing. He used one of the
Arsenio, no?
old Cubans used to do that he put two.
Yeah, Arsenio.
Yeah, Arsenio, right? Yeah.
You take a step further. Any master blender in any factory does that, because anytime they get a new crop, they have to understand what that tobacco does. So in a sense, any master blender is going to just go when the Pelon and when the tobacco is ready, they think it's ready, they're gonna try it, and understanding what that tobacco brings will enhance and make a very well balanced cigar. So.
Yeah, that's true, Ruben. If you remember when we were on Carlito Fuente's show, he actually was doing that when we were talking to him. I just remember that now. But yeah, no, I think those are really damn cool events that you guys do, and I can tell you, like I've noticed throughout like the last year or so, I think they're a smash hit because I'm seeing people post about it on social media, and they're saying that they're, you know, it's a new way for people to, like a consumer, to experience cigars and to, you know, take a peek behind how they're crafted. So I think that is a really cool idea, and I can't wait to get going with that. But yeah, we mentioned Sweden a little bit. We touched on this. I just wanted to hear you guys, because you're expanding a lot, but you know, both US but also internationally, which I think is really cool. So how is the internationalization process going? If Fabian, I understand that's your
it's
Swiss
the
expertise.
biggest headache ever.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, first, and this is true in any country, if the governments would allow us to do something, which by all governments, what we're doing, smoking cigar is legal. But, you know, and of course you have to be a certain age, and that's understandable and whatnot. But if you're past that certain age, you're smoking a cigar, it's totally illegal. But yet all the governments give you restrictions of, you can't smoke this, you can't smoke here, you can't smoke there, laws, taxes, and all that stuff. So dealing with the paperwork is a big headache, and it's, you know, especially now with there's going to be a whole new track and trace system for the whole EU, and we have to register every single cigar and this and that, whatever. So we're going head on towards this. We're going to get done. Everything needs to be done by May 20th or May 21st, but everything's going to be done by then.
Yeah.
Other countries are just like, hey, all right, yeah, we need cigars. Just ship us 100 boxes and we're good to go. I wish it was all like that, but
of course, yeah.
but it's cool. Now, at the same time, with Aganorsa, I just jumped on the Aganorsa train July 1st, right? Like I said earlier. And one of the things that they wanted me to focus on was international sales. I'm like, all right, cool. So you know, my first question, of course, is, so what do you guys do internationally right now? And the answer literally was, oh, well, we sell to these 3 countries. Okay, all right, well, we'll grow that market. We'll grow that, and now by the end of the year, we'll go from 3 to 12. Okay, which is a huge, but it's also like a double-edged sword, because the factory can only make so many cigars, right? It's not like auto parts or anything where they could, you know, they just make more parts. We have plenty of tobacco. It's just the manpower of rolling X amount of cigars. If the factory only makes 25,000 cigars a day, they can only make 25,000 cigars a day. And why it's important is, if I sell all the thousands and thousands of boxes I'm going to sell in Sweden, all come from the stockpile that is supposed to be sold in the US. Yeah. Okay. So it's what when I spoke to Eduardo, when I speak to Terrence, is it's controlled growth. Yes, we want to sell more. Yes, we want to be in 197 countries worldwide, but we don't, we don't want to create huge back orders in the US. And at the same time, once things are going in Sweden, we don't want the Swedish people to wait another 8 months to get the next box, right? So we want to have a continuous pipe flow of cigars, and that's why it's all about controlled growth. And the good thing is both Terrence and Eduardo understand that, and that's where we're going towards. So next year, yeah, we'll expand, but maybe we'll go from 12 to 20, and then we'll cap it off. Just as production goes up, then sales are going to go up, and more markets are going to be open. And congrats to Charles and Manny, because they saw Aganorsa, and they've been tasting Aganorsa cigars and especially Aganorsa tobacco and some other brands, and literally they're in the first wave of new countries, so that's awesome, and we're very proud, and we look for great things. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
Would there be like a possibility or a probability of bringing down the amount of tobacco that you distribute to other manufacturers to increase your own cigar manufacturing, or is that
it's the tobacco is less of the problem, really, because we only, out of what we grow about 20,000 bales a year. We probably use 15, maybe 20% of that. The rest of it we sell. So you can always dive more into that. It is nice to sell it though, because you get the money right there. Whereas where it goes to us, it's a little different thing. But we can always increase the amount of tobacco. That's less the problem than again, it's rolling, packing, all those like the type of things. Also, Nicaragua again continues to grow. It's the #1 producer of cigars now, so there's a demand for employees. Also, a lot of people have left the country and come to the U.S. over the past couple of years as well. So not only is there greater demand, there's less people to even fight over. So that's the problem. And also with international, which is we're glad Fabian's here for, is that when stuff comes to the United States, whether it goes to Florida or Texas or wherever, it comes in here, and then that's basically it. They put it on a container. Forever, you send it to Germany, that's a shipment with paperwork and rules and regulations. You send it to Pakistan, that's a shipment with rules and regulations and this. So every single place you're sending it to, even if you sent the same amount of cigars, it would still take 5 times the time to do it, because it's broken up into smaller pieces, depending on what country it's going to. So that's really more of the problem than anything to do with tobacco. It's the time and the people that you need.
All right, so you touched on the production of tobacco and selling it to clients, and of course now you do make your own cigars. I just wanted to talk a little about the factory situation now, because reading through the history, there were a few different places. It was first Honduras, right, and then there was some production in Miami way back, and there was some sort of partnership with the Garcia family, and it was a little back and forth, it sounded like.
The manufacturing was the last thing we did, basically. So they started growing, and then we got into distribution. A legendary industry guy, Pedro Martin, he had a company called Tropical Tobacco, which we sold tobacco to him, and he sold the company to Eduardo after when he retired. And then for the manufacturing side, we tried doing that ourselves at first, and there were some issues on that side. Most of the Cubans we had at the time were farmers; they weren't factory people, and so they didn't, have the logistics there to really experience in logistics to do that well. So they shut that down, and then they went to Honduras with Raíces Cubana, and we worked very closely with them for a few years until we were able. We had the people to operate our own factory. In Miami, also, we made cigars. We still make a small amount of cigars in Miami, but very little. It's basically, we have one roller left here. It's basically a showcase. We do cigars for events, throughout the United States. We make our fumas here. We do some showcases when we have guests and things like that. But especially with COVID, it just became very difficult to do the manufacturing on this side. And so basically everything, 99.9% of everything is in our own factory in Nicaragua now.
All right. Makes sense.
Yeah. Just going back, Terrence, you said now that you've been around at the company for 6 years. Just curious, how did you start at the Aganorsa? How did your
So
yeah.
Terrence Riley is about as gringo name as you can possibly have, but my father is like, he's half Spanish Cuban, so like I actually even have a Spanish passport, and I have family in the business. So Manuel Quesada from Quesada Cigars,
Right.
out of the Dominican Republic. I call him my uncle. He and my father are first cousins, but he's 76 years old. So saying cousin, our ages and stations in life, that doesn't reflect
Latino style
the
cousins,
nature
yeah.
of the relationship. Yeah. So I worked for him for many years. I went down there one summer when I was younger, and spent the summer working there just kind of for fun. And I didn't even smoke cigars. I just wanted to go. Dominican Republic sounds like a fun place to go and have a summer. And I worked in the factory, and then on Sundays, my uncle would have everybody over for lunch, and we'd have lunch and have some drinks and play cards, and everyone was kind of smoking. So I was like, I'll have a cigar too. And so I started getting into it. And again, it's like the same reason we're all in it, I think, ultimately, is that camaraderie and that experience of that communal experience that you have with cigars is really something special. There's very little like that anymore, where it just brings people together. I mean, people can't agree the sky is blue anymore. And so it's nice to have something where everybody's just there, different stations, religions, cultural backgrounds, whatever it is, and everybody gets along pretty well and has a great time. So that really interests me, and I ended up working for my uncle for almost a decade, and so I was there for many years, and then when I left there, I joined up here, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, Manolo Quesada is a legend. I chatted with him in the DR, and he's man, his voice is that like baritone voice. He's quite the presence.
Mr. Riley. We have dignitaries here. Yeah, he's a great man. And I'm very blessed to have got to spend the time I did there, and we're still close. We talk every few weeks or months or so, just to touch base on life.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, so Fabian, we turning to you and said we mentioned it, but you have 19 years under your belt for Drew Estate, and
yes.
And now you are almost half a year now at Aganorsa. Other than what you mentioned, how different has it been coming to Aganorsa, and how has the change been, especially after a few years outside of
there's gonna be a lot of beeping in this segment.
Okay, here we go. I'm ready.
No, listen. I mean, here's the thing, right? When I joined Drew Estate, it was just a group of guys who had an idea, had a vision. We were very, very all similar age-wise, within 2 years older or younger, and we didn't know any better.
Right.
And it was kind of like us against the world. And especially when the very first brand they released was Acid, which is, you couldn't get any more non-traditional in probably what is one of the most traditional industries, right? So it was the us against the world mentality, and with my upbringing in my prior life, which was at Disneyland, which is you have to kill people with kindness. We killed people with kindness, and sometimes we're a little rough around the edges, but most of the part we killed people with kindness, and they gave us a chance, and that's how things grew, right? And along the way, you start learning things, and you start realizing, and what we always used to say is we'll never write a book on how to become successful, but we'll write a book on what not to do to become successful, because we've done at this time. We've done pretty much everything, but the cool thing is we only make mistakes once, and then we learn from a mistake. I've never heard, speaking to many people, all walks of life and all sorts of industries, and very successful people. I've never heard of someone who told me that, they got it right every single time, and I'm in that position because I know everything. We're not. It's the people who learn along the way, and the people that react a lot faster, and when the company was a lot smaller, it was easier to react, right? So that's one of the cool things with Aganorsa, is it's still very, very small. I have a problem. I can call Eduardo, not necessarily call him WhatsApp. He loves WhatsApp. So I'm constantly WhatsApp, sending WhatsApp messages with Eduardo. And 30 seconds later, he's answering my messages, right? So I mean, there's the corporate structure is, you know, it's everyone is looking up to Eduardo. Eduardo owns the whole thing, and this and that, whatever. And then there's, you know, Terrence, myself, and other people. But it's so cool to be able to just reach out to the person who owns the business, and seeing how much the person who owns the business cares about the business falls and bleeds on you, which means now I really care about the business. And I treat it like it's my own business, you know, where I'm trying to deal with marketing, and should I spend $1,000 here or $100 there, this and that, whatever. I'm using that money as if it was my money, right? Not every, and that's the cool aspect. It's also there's a lot of craziness going on because we're all in our, you know, in our 30s and 40s, and now, you know, I just turned 50 this year, and Eduardo's a couple years older than me, you know. I mean, his cousin Paul Palmer, who is also and has been with the company since the very early days of tropical tobacco, so he's been here for 20 some years. Again, he's a couple years older than me, and it's so cool to sit down because there's the sharing of ideas, right? I mean, I don't know, you know, about you, but there's a difference between if you're walking into a meeting, and right before you walk into a meeting, they're like, okay, so this is your opinions, and when I call you, you have to say this. Okay, all right, we all follow directions. And here I walk into a meeting, and it's instead of like, well, what do you think? What is your opinion? And at first I'm like, well, I don't know. You didn't tell me what my opinion was supposed to be, so I don't know what my opinion was, right? But now it's like, oh man, they actually want to listen, and we have very, very good conversations. I mean, Terrence and I, we were having this very passionate conversation yesterday. People thought we were like yelling at each other, but it's passion. And at the end of the day, we're all going towards the same goal. We just had two different ways of getting to it, right? And that's the cool thing, because my grandfather told me something that I think about every day. And he goes, the day you stop learning is the day you die. So I always try to learn something every single day, because I'm not ready to die. So I want, you know, at least when I go to bed, I can go, hey, God Almighty, I learned this today, so I better wake up tomorrow morning, right? So yeah, it's cool, and I really enjoy having conversations. And at the end of the day, we're having conversations over dried up leaves. How incredible is that, right? I mean, sometimes you know, I know in Sweden it's a little different because there's like 78 different political aspects and branches and parties. Here in the US, there's mostly, you know, there's two main ones. But wouldn't it be cool if people from all different kinds of backgrounds light up a cigar, and then they just talk, and then, you know, everyone just ends up being equal, and they can share their opinion. Oh wait, that happens in all the cigar stores all over the place. But the second you walk out the cigar store, it's like, oh yeah, no, you suck. Oh yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm the man. Boston Red Sox suck, and the Yankees are the best, and you know whatnot. But anyways, it's so cool how a cigar is like the great equalizer. You know, I mean, it's amazing. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I just talked for 7 minutes.
But for sure. It was really good answer.
And by the way, I gotta give props to all the Swedish people, okay? Because what we're doing, okay, isn't necessarily on Zoom, right? It's on something different. But did you know that a Swedish guy invented Zoom?
Oh, really? I didn't know Zoom was.
Yeah.
I know the Swedish guy invented Skype.
And Skype, he invented and Skype. And in 2011, Skype got sold to Microsoft for $8.5 billion. But that's Swedish. Okay. But here's the other craziest thing, and I know it's time out. We're talking about Sweden, this and that, whatever. There's a gentleman, and maybe it's a common name, but his name is Alexander Samuelsson. Okay, 100 years ago, created an item that is probably one of the most worldwide known items in the world, and you can pretty much see that item in one shape or form, one size or another.
Don't cheat, much Ruben. I see you're looking at your keyboard.
Huh?
Ruben's looking at his keyboard. He's cheating.
Samuelsson, and I know you're already typing. You're Googling.
Ruben is.
And before you get the answer, is he invented the Coke bottle.
Really?
Coca-Cola bottle.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
That special form of the Coca-Cola bottle. And his thought was he wanted to invent a bottle in which whether you could see or you couldn't see, you could feel and you knew exactly what you were grabbing. And no matter if it's plastic or glass, it has that same shape, and there's no other shape. That shape is patented, and yet it was invented by Alexander Samuelsson.
Look at us Swedes getting educated about Sweden.
I know, man.
Amazing.
I mean, us Swiss people only have watches, chocolate, and cheese, and maybe the banking system. You guys got Coke bottles. I mean, man.
Yeah, that is pretty equal, I have to say, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
But we get mistaken for Swiss all the time from Americans. So yeah, we're practically the same.
We're brothers. Yeah, we're brothers.
It was like that when Sweden and Switzerland played each other in the World Cup a few years back.
Oh,
and
man,
it was the biggest confusion in the US.
That was the don't even bring that was a nightmare. I mean, the coach that day, like, I don't know, I'm sorry, but when you're trying to play defense for like 89 minutes and then the Swedes score in the 90th minute, then you start putting all your attackers in. Come on, man. I mean, like, what's the deal here? Like that same year we beat Spain our first game.
Oh yeah,
and we were the only team that beat Spain the year Spain won the World Cup, and that was the first game.
That's
that was
pretty sick,
you know, after the first game, all right, that's it. We're gonna win it all, man. I mean, we beat Spain, whatever. We there's the 18 the brackets. Oh man, we got Sweden. We're attacking. We're attacking, and then it's like, what the hell? What's this defensive game? Like, man, you just brought back nightmares. Thank you.
I proved once and
for
all
we are cry in the corner for 5 minutes now.
Superior nation.
Yeah, I remember that game very, 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 very. Unfortunately,
I do too, but positive for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I hope your next cigar is plugged.
It's all relative, you know. The lobsters on the Titanic thought it was a miracle, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. I hadn't heard that one before. That was really good.
Anyway, I guess when we're talking about sports, I've been seeing some like posts about football on your Instagram, and Carl and I, we're one of the few Swedes actually that watch the NFL, but very passionately. So I want to ask, do you guys watch NFL, and what teams do you support?
America's team, the Patriots. So we're having a very poor year. After 20 years of total dominance.
Yeah.
But we're having a bad year, unfortunately. Can't win them all. It can't all be glory.
You know, the people that watch the Patriot games this year, you know what they're doing? They're actually watching the grass grow. That's what they're watching, because they're not watching for the Patriots to win. So that's brutal.
It's been a rough year.
No, here's the crazy thing, right? So in America, the NFL is huge, and up until like maybe 10, 12 years ago, it just got so much bigger because of fantasy football.
Yeah,
so
that's
now
how we got into it.
Every single person thinks like, I'm going to create my own team, this and that, whatever. And you know, at the end of the day, whoever you pick first is always going to break their leg or tear an
Justin
ACL
Jefferson. I have the number one pick.
He's got bad memory.
Yeah, we'll take that for beating Switzerland, Sweden. But yeah, I mean, that's the reason why. So I used to play fantasy football when I was at Drew State, but because I was one of the higher ups and all the people below me wanted to be on there, I forced them to trade. So I didn't care who I picked up at the beginning of the season.
That's cheating.
Yeah.
No, it was a trade. We were trading. I mean,
forced.
You know, I said I highly, you highly need to do it. But I was giving him 3 good players for 1 great player. Okay. So I was always the guy that has 2 starting quarterbacks that were kind of good, and whatever starting quarterback I picked, the other dude went better. So then I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to give you 2 good starting quarterbs. You're going to give me the best starting quarterback.
Two quarters for $1.
Yeah, exactly.
2 quarters for $1.
So I won 3 out of 4 years. The 1 year I didn't win was actually I was spending most of my time in Europe, so it was hard to do trades in Europe with a time change and all that stuff. But But anyways, I mean, yeah, that's why football is so much bigger. And you're the majority of the people now, yeah, they may have their favorite team, but they're like all their favorite players. That's what they root for.
It's funny. My son doesn't even like he's been doing it now, and like he's like, okay, what game has this player? Like he's not even interested in the teams really. He likes watching the game where his player is playing. That's it.
That's what Red Zone is perfect for.
Yeah, that's
see all the touchdowns.
Yeah, that's true. So we've taken up almost an hour of your time. I just wanted to, before we sign off, we
got 5 hours to go. All right, perfect.
5, all right, perfect. Let's get back into it. Let's go through our whole fantasy teams while we're at it.
Well, by the way, 1917, the Swedish guy invented the zipper. I mean, all guys are very thankful for that. So thank you, Mr. Zipper, for inventing the zipper in 1917.
I'm not always thankful. You're not watching me do it. Not always thankful about that. It's not something about Mary.
Good. I didn't know that one either. Did you, Ruben?
No, it rang a bell, but no, I didn't know. I know some other
and then we also
like
have,
the propeller.
the Swedes to think about the Celsius, right? So
the
Celsius
Anders
was invented by the Swedes.
Yeah, it was his name, Anders. Yeah, Anders
Celsius.
Because I guess he couldn't count up to 212, so he's like, no, boiling is 100. There we go. Freezing is 0. It's not 32. It makes no sense, but yeah.
And then Spotify as well is the big one.
Spotify, Spotify. That was actually a great documentary or a great show on, I think on Netflix. I think it was. It was actually very, very cool. Yeah.
ABBA.
ABBA. Which ABBA had the greatest hits on Eurovision. ABBA was the number one, and I don't know which countries won the most, but I will tell you,
it is Sweden actually.
Won it once. Switzerland won it once, and we gave a Swiss citizenship to Celine Dion.
Really?
So she could go and sing, and you watch, you go in the thing. The only time Switzerland won was when Celine Dion was a Swiss citizen and partook.
So you cheating in fantasy football is very on brand then as a Swiss.
Well, she was like 18. I mean, no one knew about her yet.
The Swiss are cheaters.
No.
That's it.
It's not.
They just
listen. You look at the Swiss. You look at the Swiss national team, and there's only one dude called Freuler, and then everyone else is like Rodriguez, Akanji, Shaka. It's like all these people. It's like the United Nations. I mean, hey, and we still suck. So yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, but on the Swedish track, two of the cigars that we are bringing in that I just wanted to touch on, and I guess have you guys introduce because I smoked them both after Dortmund. I had smoked them before as well. I've also been a long time admirer of Aganorsa as much as I've been able to get my hands on them when traveling and stuff. But the Signature Select and the Rare Leaf are two that we're looking at them that we really love. So if you guys just want to introduce the tobaccos, I guess, and the experience there to
Nicaraguan tobacco, they're very good. Go buy them, go smoke them.
Done. All right, see you guys later.
Right. So the Signature is an interesting cigar from us because it kind of highlights our capacities as a large grower of tobacco. In the Signature we use Medio Tiempo, and Medio Tiempo tobacco kind of became famous because of the Cuban Bahique. It's always been around. The Cuban Bahique uses the very top couple leaves that are above the Lejero. It's not on every plant. They're small leaves and they're very thick. They're like alligator skin when you look at them.
Right.
And it's an interesting and they have a different flavor than the Lejeros. So it's a tobacco that you can't get much yield out of. So just to give you an idea, out of 20,000 bales we harvest a year, maybe 100 and 150 will be Medio Tiempo grade. So it's very low amounts. So we're able to utilize something like that because we grow so much. Otherwise, it'd be very difficult. Right. And so Signature utilizes a very small amount of Medio Tiempo. Medio Tiempo, again, it's kind of like Tabasco sauce or something. If you put too much in, it kind of overwhelms the blend. But you put a little bit in, and it kind of intensifies it and adds some gravitas to the flavor profile. And so Signature contains Medio Tiempo. On the Rare Leaf side, Rare Leaf, which this is the benefit in some ways for international, is that in the United States, there's only about 150 retailers that carry Rare Leaf. It's very Criollo 98 dominant, and it utilizes tobaccos that always the problem with the limited edition is there's one of two things that happen. You use these tobaccos that you have, limited supplies of, and you create the limited edition, and it sells out, and then the customer goes back in the store and goes, "Oh man, I love that cigar. I'd like another box." And they go, "Oh well, it was limited edition. There's no more." And they go, "Oh, what do you mean there's no more?" So the guy starts looking around in other places to find the cigar. The retailer feels he loses a customer potentially because this guy's trying to find cigars other places. So they don't like that. And then the other part is like, well, you just make more, but then you start, kind of diluting the blend a little bit to increase capacity. And then where they say, "Oh, it's not the same as it used to be." So there's a problem there one way or the other. And so with Rare Leaf, what we did is we limit access to it. So we're able to consistently produce it, but it's only going to about 15% of our retailers nationwide who partake in this program called Aganorsa Select. And for international, because international, the U.S. is still the biggest market, and it's so big, we don't have to make that kind of regulation for international market. We can produce it for international markets because it's just not the size that the U.S. has. So the benefit for that is that you have access to some things like Rare Leaf, where even most Americans would have a hard time securing it. So it's something that's nice that those are two great blends. They're two great expressions of Aganorsa. The signature is more Corojo dominant. The Rare Leaf is more Criollo dominant. So between the two of them, you're going to really get a sense of where your profile lies with Aganorsa.
Perfect. Yeah. Couldn't ask for a better description. That's awesome. Ruben, you wanna?
Rare Leaf cigar spelled backwards means best cigar ever.
I'm gonna have to check that. I'm just gonna have to fact check that one.
Also gonna have to fact check your your fun facts now. Considering that.
Put in ChatGPT. I'm sure it'll.
It's gonna turn up. These are all actually Swiss, and he's just been trolling us the whole time.
When you Google it, it says Swiss lies.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Ruben, you want to send us off with one last question?
Absolutely, yeah. So the Guardian of the Farm brand all features different dogs on them. What is the story behind the dog?
So the brand started off as a collaboration between Kyle Gullis of Warped Cigars. We make many cigars. Really very popular boutique brand in the United States, and he sells internationally as well. Yeah. And with us, Kyle and Max Fernandez, Eduardo's son, they're about the similar age, and they're friendly. Obviously, working together as well on blends and things like that. And they decided to do a project together. And Kyle is a dog lover. He has a dog named Apollo. That's an American Bulldog, and we use American Bulldogs to guard our farms and fields in Nicaragua. And one, they're more trustworthy than people. And two, it's a breed that's not known down there, so it kind of looks like Chupacabra's chasing you or something. You're like, what the heck is this thing? I've never seen anything that looks like this before. So it's kind of a scary, intimidating dog. Some of the dogs, to be honest with you, because they're used to seeing people, are kind of friendly at this point. I wouldn't necessarily call them guard dogs, but some of them are not dogs you want to mess around with. And so the brand is in honor of the dog. So the sizes are named after. In the original line, 3 of the dogs are dogs from our farms, and the Apollo size is Kyle's dog. So there's Campeon, Rambo, and JJ, or Jota Jota in Spanish, and those are our dogs. And then there's Apollo for Kyle.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
Fun. And it was a Cigar Aficionado top 10 cigar of the year as well. So it gathered some acclaim, for us as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you guys are featured or your tobacco's featured in so many. It's nuts. But yeah, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on, and it's going to be extremely exciting continuing to work with you guys. It's of course, man, a true pleasure.
No, it's awesome.
Next Wednesday, we're on. All right, perfect. 10
a.m. every day.
Let's make it a weekly thing.
Fun Swedish facts with Fabian Ziegler.
I gotta find out more stuff about Sweden.
They'll send us the link. I'm sure they'll send us the link.
Like, what's the true recipe of a Swedish meatball? Like,
you don't want to know.
It's what's left when the zipper gets caught.
Thank you for the time, guys. I mean, it's a total pleasure, and we're here anytime. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And
no, it was a pleasure, guys. Skål, as I say.
Oh yeah,
Swedish word. And tack for having us. Tack for having us.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And to all the listeners, check out Aganorsa wherever you can find them. To your local retailer if you're in the States, or soon a lot more in Europe, and that's super exciting. So check them out. Try some Aganorsa. You're not going to regret it for sure. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.